I want to move to it, just in the time we have, to a direct question that affects the people who do need to be part of this revolution, where you've said that, and I'm just going to read this quotation, you can't break all the chains except one. You cannot say you want to be free of all the exploitation and oppression, except you want to keep the oppression of women by men. I think while you've touched on that in this discussion of the fascists, I think this is I know this is a big question among men of all strata, but it's very important, and it's a big part of our revolution if we actually are going to get to, one, make a revolution, and two, have it a revolution that is leading towards the emancipation of all humanity. So before we move off of this, I'd like you to speak to that.
Well, in part, the thing about you can't do away with all oppression except, the oppression of women. You can't say you want to be for liberation, but you want to enslave women. And it goes back to the Lead Belly song and everything else, for men, including men who are brutally exploited and oppressed under the system and murderously, subjected to all kinds of degradation and literal murder. There's still a question of there's one sphere, or at least, one concentrated sphere where you can act like the oppressor and feel like you're getting over, and that's, that's your relationship with your woman and with women in general. It comes out in the most outrageous ways too. I just have to say this because it really gets to me. You hear some of these basic, and people say you don't say basic, but I'm going to say basic because they're people catching hell right under at the base of society. You hear some of these men, say things like, when you talk to them or go to them about the right to abortion and how we have to stand up for the right, and they'll say, well, blah, blah, blah. But if she didn't want to get pregnant, she should have kept her legs closed. And nobody's telling these motherfuckers, you just keep your dick in your pants, okay? See, nobody, they don't want to hear that, right? So, all this bullshit is just a way of women should be subordinate to men. That's what it says in the Bible. Someone will tell you, that's just the way it is naturally and so on. This is among the oppressed. People suffering terribly, I'm talking about, although they are not the only ones, who do this by any means. And, I will say, just on a personal note, that for me, in my own development as a revolutionary and communist, I would say it has been a lifelong process of a continually deepening understanding of, the horrific nature of the oppression of women, but also the pivotal and central role of the struggle for the emancipation of women in the overall communist revolution to emancipate all humanity from every form of oppression and exploitation. So, this really is, crucial in the whole struggle. There is not going to be any liberating struggle, any liberating real revolution that doesn't have right at the heart of it, at the core of it, the emancipation of women from every way in which they're degraded and debased and oppressed and, violently suppressed. And, this is a lot of struggle. Now, look, I've talked about backward shit that people are into, but there also are, positive things where, not only among young women, but even some of the young men, including among the oppressed, have taken a better stand on this because they can identify, at least on as a first step, beginning basis, they can identify with people who are being oppressed. And then sometimes it's there's more largeness of mind involved. They don't want oppression of any kind, as much as they understand that. They're against it. So there's contention out there. But, in order, like I said, in order to have this revolution, this has to be at the core of it. It's not the only form of oppression. It has to be uprooted, obviously, but it is right at the core of transforming the whole world. This historic and, thousands of year old oppression of women in different forms in different societies. And it's been completely bound up with the division of society overall into masters and slaves, into oppressors and oppressors, exploiters and exploiters. You go back in history, it's completely bound up with that and has run through every form of oppression and exploitation, going back to days of slavery right up to the modern capitalism, imperialism, and all its forms of oppression. So, and look, here's what I would say that I think is important too. There's a whole thing out there, and I'm speaking particularly, to people who do catch the worst hell under the system and, find all kinds of wrong ways to lash out, at the way that they feel that they're being told every day that they're worthless and useless and, scum and so on, who lash out violently at each other. But there's this whole notion that, if you aren't fucking over somebody else, you're weak. I mean, some people, will even talk about how if you're in this life, out on the streets and whatever, in these communities, in neighborhoods where all this is, so intense, you can't even laugh, at least not in public. You might laugh in private, but you can't even laugh because it makes you look weak. And so the only way that you cannot be weak is by fucking over other people. And one of the main ways, if you're a man, that you can fuck over other people is to fuck over women. Now, we are bringing forward and have to fight ferociously for a whole different morality, a whole different way of going through the world, which is based on a scientific understanding of how we're going to get rid of what this oppression of all kinds is rooted in, and how we're going to get rid of it through a revolution to overthrow the system. But we have to go to people and say, there is nothing weak about fighting for the emancipation of humanity. You want to talk about something that takes courage and heart, going up against this whole system. As an emancipator of humanity, to get rid of this whole system, take it on and bring it down and put something much better in its place, that takes a tremendous amount of heart. It's not we're in a contest to show, who's badder, who's tougher, who's not weak. That's not what it's about. But if you want to talk about an outlook on the world, fighting for the emancipation of everybody in the world from every form of oppression, exploitation is the most powerful and meaningful thing you can do. And you don't, the question isn't being fucked over or fucking over someone else. It's being an emancipator. It's being a revolutionary. It's going up against this whole system in order to put an end to all the shit that's put you in the situation you're in and has put billions of people like you, male, female, and so on, all genders, in the same kind of situation. That's what we're about. That's the heart that's involved in doing this, as well as, it's founded on a science, but it takes heart. That's the heart. The heart to say, we're going to do away with any way in which anybody's fucking over anybody in the entire world. You want to talk about something that's not weak, well, that's it right there, even though the point is not, we're more hard than everybody else. It's not a contest to be hard. This is about emancipating humanity. But we have to break out of this whole trap where the terms are either you are fucking over somebody or you're getting fucked. We have to break out of that, not by, moralizing at people to go to church, and all the rest of it. Get with the revolution. Put all that anger and that frustration at the way that you're being done daily into this revolution. This is what anybody who really wants to stand up. This is what anybody who wants to have their life mean something. Yes, something bigger than themselves, but something that gives expression in the highest way to what someone's life can be about. This is where you need to go, and this is what you need to be part of. And we need to go fight with people about this. Get out of this whole framework of, if you're not fucking over women in particular, or you're not fucking over the people on the next block, then you're soft and weak, and your life is not about anything. Get out of that, because the choices are not being the fucker or being fucked over. The choices are being enslaved or emancipated. And that's what we represent, and that's what we got to take to people and fight fiercely with them about. And yes, one of the most concentrated expressions of that is fighting for the emancipation of women.